can't shoot, I would flip the battery out, just open the compartment.
Hello and welcome to this week's video, and a happy new year to everybody. Now it's only going to be a short video this week, one because it's absolutely freezing out here, and two, really I just wanted to give you an update on a couple of videos I did late last year. Now the first one, about 6 weeks ago, I introduced you to a new setup that I was using, which was a Sony A6400 linked together with a Tamron 150-600 G2, and linking them together was a Sigma MC11 adapter. Now obviously that's for wildlife photography, and initially I was very happy with that setup, and if you want to watch that video I'll put a link up here to that. Subsequently to that, a couple of weeks later, I had to come back to you in another video and say actually I've got a massive problem with this setup. Basically, without going into too much detail, a major focusing issue, and if you want to look at that video, again I'll put a link up there to that. This week I'm coming back to you, and hopefully, I'm 99.9% sure I've resolved the issue, so I just really wanted to go through what I've done to resolve it. If you're thinking of this setup, and what I'll do throughout this video, I'll put up some of the images that I've taken in the last couple of weeks since I've had this working spot on. Okay, so what was the problem with this setup? Well, initially when I took it out I had no problems at all. The only thing I did notice, I was doing some hide work, and what I was finding was occasionally the lens seemed to lose connection with the camera and just wouldn't focus, but I switched the camera on and off and it tended to work, and that just happened a couple of times and then it was fine. Subsequent to that I was going out just using it as a walk around wildlife lens, and obviously with the camera switched on, walking around, and you suddenly see something, you lift the camera up to take a shot, and I was getting an intermittent problem where it was as if the camera had lost connection again with the lens and there was no focus, but then other times it would work. Now for me that was just something I couldn't put up with for a wildlife photography camera and lens setup. As a wildlife photographer, you really never know when you're going to walk around a corner and be presented with that image that is like a lifetime image. So you need to be able to have confidence in the fact that when you lift up, go to take a shot, everything is going to work as expected. And I think the worst thing about that situation was it was intermittent. So sometimes it would be fine and other times it wouldn't, so I couldn't even think of a way to work around it because I never knew when it was going to happen. So after sulking for a few days, because I'd got this wonderful new camera and wonderful new lens that I'd hoped would work together. As I say, I still use the Canon 80D as a wildlife photography camera as well, so with this lens. So what I was losing out on was things like the Sony shoots at 11 frames a second. I can shoot video through the viewfinder, which I find helpful because I wear glasses, and one or two other things. And again, if you want to see any of those, they'll be in the initial videos that I just put up there. So yeah, I was a bit put out that it wasn't working, but wasn't 100% surprised because the Sigma MC11 adapter that I had, I didn't buy that specifically for that setup. I actually bought that when I used my Sony A7r3 with my Sigma 100-400 lens, and of course Sigma lens, Sigma adapter worked absolutely fine. And fair play to Sigma, they do say on their website, the lenses that adapter has been tested with and works with, and it's largely, they don't even say Canon lenses, I don't think, on there. It's largely Sigma lenses, even though it does work with quite a few other lenses as well. So I knew there were other adapters on the market, so what I did, I went out and did a little bit of research and ended up buying a second-hand Metabones, I think it's a Mark IV. I've actually got it on here now so I can tell you. It's a Metabones EF to E mount T, and it's the Mark IV. I think there's actually a Mark V now. So I bought this one second hand. I'd already contacted Metabones and asked if this combination was going to work, and they said yeah, it would be fine. So I was hopefully it was going to be okay. Now, as soon as I put this adapter on, the difference was marked. It actually does exactly what it's supposed to. There's no intermittent problems or anything. It just works as if you're just linking the lens directly up to the camera, which is what I wanted. Now I have to say there are a couple of things that I have noted. One of them potentially is probably something that would happen with this lens anyway, I'm not sure, but I had a really foggy day a couple of days ago actually, and took the lens out to do some wildlife photography. And because it was extremely low contrast, and what I was doing is I'd got birds in the distance that were coming towards me, literally at infinity, and I was trying to focus on them as they came towards me, and the camera was really struggling to lock onto any focus at all. Now as soon as the birds got within about 150, 200 meters, it would lock on, but at distance it just, because of the low contrast with the background and the fog, it just wasn't having it. So I can't really put that down to the it being with the adapter. That's possibly something that would happen if this lens was linked directly to the Canon with no adapter anyway. But the other thing of note that probably, especially if you're a Sony user, that you need to keep in mind is that what I've got into a habit of doing, because anybody who uses Sony knows that they gobble batteries, and particularly with a big lens on an adapter, obviously this adapter is not powered by anything other than the camera, so it draws an awful lot of power. So what you find you're doing is, you need probably 4 or 5 batteries for a day's photography. In fact, I'd probably, if I was going out all day, dawn till dusk, I'd probably have 6 or 8, just to be safe. But what I find I used to do is, if I'm sort of in a hide or something and I can notice the battery's down to say 10%, rather than wait for something to come and be taking shots and then have, battery exhausted, I would flip the battery out and just open the compartment and put a new battery in without switching the camera off. Now if you do that with this lens combination on, what happens is it loses focus again. It won't focus. It's as if what I think you need to do, and what works, is if you switch the camera off, which is what you should do, and put a fresh battery in and then switch it back on, I think the camera must go through some sort of startup procedure where it recognises the adapter and the lens, links them all back together, and away you go. But if you just flip the battery out, switching it off, and then try and focus again, that's where I've had issues. So that's the only problem I've found. Hopefully these images that you're seeing throughout this video will show that actually it's doing a reasonable job. As I say, I've not had hours and hours to play with it. I'm going to be using it over the next few months to hopefully get some more images for my portfolio, and I think the potential is there. So anyway, that was just a quick update. That's the only issue that I've noted. Really nothing else to report other than it works really, really well. Right, I hope you've enjoyed this video, and anybody who was looking to get this combination of camera and lens or something similar, I hope I've shown that with these images that you've seen throughout the video that it does actually work very, very well. Just a couple of other things I want to mention before I go. In last week's video I reviewed a Vanguard travel tripod. There's actually a competition within that video to win one of those tripods as a little bit of a celebration for me reaching 1,000 subscribers on my channel. And I'd really like to thank you all for your support last year, and hopefully you'll continue to support me in the new year. And anybody who's not subscribed, obviously please subscribe to the channel. Hopefully you'll find my content interesting, and you'll find some interesting stuff coming up next year. Also like to say that I've got a new series coming up on the channel next year. It's a wildlife photography series. It's going to be, I don't really want to say too much about it, but it's going to be a challenge for me, but hopefully a lot of people who want to do some wildlife photography will find something useful in it. So that's for the new year. I hope we all have a great new year, and get out of the mire that was 2020. I'll see you next week for another video. As always, if you've enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you've not subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing, and I'll see you next week. Stay safe everybody. Cheers, bye.